AITA for being upset by my husband's solo vacation travel. I, 40F, have a wonderful, loving husband, 40M. Hi is an involved father. He pitches in with the housework, and he makes enough money for us to be very comfortable while I stay home with our 2 young children. I worked before kids and intend to again once they're both school-aged. He's the love of my life. He's wonderful when he's here. He has a dear friend living in a different city 5 hours away, who he usually visits for 2 to 3 days twice a month. A few times a year they tend to tackle longer, 4 to 6 day trips. It adds up to a lot of time away, but it's in manageable increments and in service to an important friendship that I wouldn't want him to miss out on. Last fall they took a 2-week trip abroad. I knew about it well in advance and was fine with it. I figured it was a one every few years sort of thing. A month or so after that trip, he tells me they are planning another overseas trip for this spring. This time, it's a place I've always wanted to go. We had previously started to plan a trip there ourselves, but decided it would have to wait until the kids were older. I told him I wasn't happy but somewhat grudgingly gave my blessing to what was supposed to be a 7 to 10 day trip. Same goes for another 5 to 7 day trip abroad they decided to plan for this summer. Again to a place we had previously talked about going together when kids are older. And then I found out that first the spring trip and then the summer trip had ballooned into 3 weeks each. I got upset. I cried and told him I felt betrayed and abandoned, like he was leaving me here to raise the kids. Both trips will now cause him to miss significant kid-related events he knew about before planning, while he just goes on doing what he wants and living his life without me. He found my response really hurtful, that I would act like a haze abandoning me and the kids, and said that he deserves to have meaningful friendships and see beautiful things. Am I being unreasonable about this? I feel like I might be, because I haven't done a good job balancing parenthood and my own social life. I basically don't have one anymore, and worry I might be speaking from a place of envy than fairness. And we do also take other trips together as a family. But 2 months of international travel in the span of a year seems like a lot. And when you also add on the bi-monthly hanging out, that's about 4 months out of town with his friend. I can count on one hand the number of solo days out I've had in the last 3 years with any of my friends. And so again I'm not sure how much this is envy vs unfairness. Note, I haven't yet insisted he cancel any of his trips, but want to ask he at least scale the summer trip back to 1 week instead of 3. So bonus. Would if I insisted he scale back the summer trip to 1 week? AITA for forcing my stepdaughter to pay me back after she ruined my house? I, 43F, and my husband, 47M, have been married for 4 years now. We both have children from our previous marriages, 12M, and 10M, and 18F. My husband and I dated for 3 years prior to getting married but moved in all together 2 years ago. Lives with us full-time and it had a bit of a rocky start with mine and O's relationship but we managed to push through it. I told O from day one that I wasn't her mom but if there was anything she wants to talk about or need, she can come to me. After a few months, we became quite close and she talked to me about anything she was too embarrassed to talk about with her dad. Recently, O has been trying to make friends at college since she just started in the spring. On-campus residence is very expensive for the college. And it's close to our house so O decided to stay at home. That's not a problem. The problem is that O keeps bringing her friends over to hang out but living it a mess. Normally it's not a major deal. I have OCD so sometimes there is issues depending on the situation though. Because she picks up after herself but I recently hired a housekeeper to clean the house once a week since I've been working overtime more often and me and my husband just don't have time. It is expensive but I cannot stand it when it becomes too messy for me so I think it's worth it. This time she brought her friends over after the house was cleaned and I guess they decided not take their shoes off and walked all around the house, leaving footprints. They also made pizza from scratch and left the crumbles on the counters among other things. They pretty much made the entire house filthy before I could even come home. Once again, the cleaning service is quite expensive because I like a higher level of cleaning quality so I was ist. My husband is trying to make let it go because O has always struggled making friends but I can't let it go because of how much it cost. I requested the exact amount I paid for the cleaning service to her Venmo and she acted all confused on why she had to pay for it. I explained that her and her friends ruined my house that was just cleaned but she insisted it wasn't her. I have a Ring camera and I have video proof of her and her friends going into the house and they were the only ones home that day before me. I gave her 2 choices, pay for the damages or I stop paying for her phone. She's complaining saying it wasn't there and she doesn't have the money to pay the phone bill. AITA? Edit to clear confusion. The cleaners came before O, fully cleaned the house then left, and an hour later O came in with her friends. AITA for telling my wife she is privileged to be able to be a stay-at-home wife. I understand how much work she does and I agree that it is not easy. I was just pointing out that it's not something that every family gets to do and we are fortunate that I make enough money for her to not have to work. She got upset with me and told me she's on call, 24 hours a day for the kids. We have 3 kids that she takes to and picks up from school MF. I told her I'm very grateful that she's home with the kids and I don't have to miss work when they are sick. However, she still occasionally gets them to school late and I have gotten calls from the school that she didn't pick them up and they can't get a hold of her because she's napping. We were talking about her not picking up the kids on time one day when I made the point and said, "You are privileged to be a stay-at-home mom." This caused an enormous fight. AITA? AITA for making my BF walk our dog at 3 a.m.? Edit. The 1,000 comments saying the exact same thing and the unhinged DMs telling me to kill my dog can stop now because I already said 50 comments in that I was and that I'll work harder on retraining her with the help of a trainer hopefully because there are some root issues that need working on. First, I'm a nurse. I used to get home from work an hour. Dog would be by the door waiting because she got used to the time I'd be home. I'd then take her for a quick walk. She got used to it and it turned to a habit. I was working night shifts only pretty consistently until now. My boyfriend refuses to wake up at night when she comes barking at our door and acts like he is dead asleep or just point blank says no. I then have to wake up and do it. Yesterday night I went to the bathroom as soon because I genuinely needed it, but then she woke up and wanted to go for her walk. I could hear my BF calling me, but I stayed in bathroom a while longer to prompt him to get up and take her on walk because I have told him time and time again it's unfair that I always have to do it. He did end up doing it but was pretty pissed off about it and said I created this issue and should deal with it to fix it. AITA? AITA for deleting a video of myself from my friend's phone that he took while I was drunk? My friend filmed me while I was drunk, basically confessing to loving him since we were kids. It isn't something I ever would have said to him sober, and I absolutely cannot let anybody else see that video because he's seeing my best friend and it would hurt her if she saw it. I asked him to delete it multiple times but he would always turn it into a joke and refuse. He promised he wouldn't show it to anybody else. Buddhas watched it in front of me in places where anybody could have overheard, so I didn't trust Haman. I secretly deleted it from his phone. He's mad at me for taking his phone, deleting the video, and because he thinks I looked at other things on it. The only thing I did was delete the video, but he doesn't believe me. My best friend knows he's mad at me but doesn't know why, but he threatened to tell her and is claiming he had the video backed up, which I think is pretty hideous of him. I don't plan to apologize to him because I feel like he forced my hand as he should have deleted it when I asked him to, but... AITA? AITA for laughing at my estranged late father's wife when she realized my grandparents gave everything to me. So my father was not my bio father. He and my mom were together from the time I was 6 months old until I was 7. They had my little sister together and divorced after she died. He stayed in my life and swore to me I was still as much his son and he would always be there for me. I loved him and thought the world of him, so I was really glad to hear that. I had no other father figure really. Well, except for my grandfather, his father. My mom became really unstable after my sister died and he ended up being raised by my father. When I was 15, he met his wife Nat and she had a 3-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. Nat didn't like me. She knew I wasn't his kid by blood and she disliked how much my grandparents adored me. She'd always bring up my not being his real kid. She undermined our relationship so many times. Examples: she referred to my dad as a childless parent because my sister died and would say how tragic it would be to lose your only child, when my grandmother would say how like my dad I was. Nat would interject with how impossible that was because I was not his bio child. One time it resulted in my grandparents kicking her out of the house. My father was taking me out to celebrate my 17th birthday and she complained that he was going to leave her kids behind. She said he should not be treating them as less than. Told him that they were watching us leave them out and would feel like he didn't love them. She also said she would not be okay with him treating me like the only kid in the house because I was so much bigger and almost grown. She tried to find out info on my biological father. I became estranged from my father because of all this. He stayed married to her despite all that shedded. He even let her say rap to my grandparents about buying me gifts and how that should be spent on younger kids, not an almost adult. My grandparents fought back that I was their grandson. My father sided with Nat. We remained estranged until his death last year. That's when my grandparents went through the legal process to evict my Nat and her kids. They owned the house and owned a lot of stuff my father used. They never charged him rent or anything but wanted me to get everything. Nat was shocked that they would do that, and she expected they would let her get the house and other stuff they had given Dad. She asked about her kids and they said they had not seen those kids in years, so would not be giving them anything. Nat confronted me over it and I laughed at her anger at me over it. She said I was nothing and got everything, and how I should be sharing or leaving it to her kids who lost the only father they ever had. I just kept laughing and walked away from her. She showed up where I work. She told me I was AmItheAsshole, and a friend of my father's heard about AITA and told me I should have just walked away and not left. He said at the end of the day her kids were Dad's kids too, and to think about them and how much this must suck for them at least. AITA?